Assalamu alaikum dear students. This is me, your biology teacher, with a summary of Zoom online revision class. Dear students, in today's online revision class, we have revised a few topics from chapter number 10, that is about gaseous exchange. So actually gaseous exchange is the exchange of gases between organism and its environment, or it can be defined as the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between an organism and its environment. It is a process which occurs through diffusion. Dear students, as you already know that energy is the ability to do work, and living things or living organisms require energy for doing different works, or for performing their life activities. They need energy. Now the major source of the energy is sunlight. The major source of energy is sun, and that energy can be utilized only by plants directly. They can use the energy of sun. The sunlight energy can be used by the plant, and they can convert the sunlight into food energy, the light energy into food energy. This process is called photosynthesis, by which plants make their own food with the help of using energy of sunlight. And for this process, they need carbon dioxide from the environment. And as a result of photosynthesis, they produce oxygen as a byproduct, which is released to the environment. Similarly, the energy which is in the form of glucose, in the form of food molecule, can be released in the living organism by a process which is called respiration. In respiration, the glucose is broken down with the help of oxygen. As a result, carbon dioxide, energy, and water is formed. So photosynthesis and respiration are two important processes in which the energy is converted from one form into another form, and which are required for the living organism. But these two processes need some gases. Like in the photosynthesis, carbon dioxide is required, while in the respiration, oxygen is required. While in the photosynthesis, oxygen is produced as a byproduct, while in the respiration, carbon dioxide is produced as a byproduct. So for such process, living organisms need to exchange these gases with the environment. For example, for photosynthesis, plant will require or plant will obtain or plant will take carbon dioxide from its environment, and in turn plant will give or plant will release oxygen to its environment. Similarly, for respiration, organism, plants or animals need oxygen. They take oxygen from their environment, and as a result of this process, they produce carbon dioxide, which is released to the environment. So this process of exchange of gases between the organism and the environment is called gaseous exchange. Now there is another term which is called breathing. Breathing is simply the inhalation and exhalation of air. The taking in and the letting out of the air is simply termed as breathing. It is done to get oxygen from air and release carbon dioxide in it. It is done for respiration. It is done to take oxygen from the air and to release carbon dioxide in it. In breathing, the fresh air is made available to the respiratory surface, and you know that the respiratory organ is lung. So in breathing, the fresh air is made available to the respiratory surface of the lungs for gaseous exchange. And then there is another most important process which is called respiration. Respiration means a complex oxidation reduction reaction which takes place at cellular level, and which actually energy is released at cellular level, which is the breakdown of food molecule at cellular level in which energy is released. The breakdown of food molecule, that is glucose, into simpler molecules like carbon dioxide and water to release energy is called respiration. And you know that all organisms need energy to continue their life activities, and this energy is provided to an organism for performing life activities by the process of respiration, because this is the energy releasing process. So here in this chapter, we are going to discuss about the gaseous exchange, about the breathing and the respiration. Okay, coming toward the breathing, gaseous exchange and respiration, the relationship between breathing, gaseous exchange and respiration. If you look at the process of the breathing, in the breathing, first of all, the air moves to the lungs. First of all, the air will move to the lungs. When the air enters the lung, in the lung, the process of gaseous exchange will take place, in which the oxygen is taken from the air. The oxygen becomes the part of the blood, while the carbon dioxide is released in the air, in the alveoli. So here the process of gaseous exchange takes place. And the next step, when the oxygen is when the oxygen become the part of the blood, this oxygen is transported to the cell with the help of blood, and in the cell the cellular respiration takes place, in which the food is oxidized, the food is broken down. As a result, carbon dioxide is produced. This carbon dioxide is transported back to the lungs, and in the lungs the carbon dioxide become the part of the air which is present in the lung, and then the air is expelled out. The air moves out of the lung. So this process in which the air moves in and out of the lung, this is simply called breathing. The process that takes place inside the lungs, in which the gases are exchanged between the lungs and between the blood, between the alveoli and between the blood, this is called gaseous exchange. And the process which takes place inside the cell, in which the food is broken down and energy and carbon dioxide and water is formed, that is called cellular respiration. Now coming toward gaseous exchange in plant. Plants are also living organisms. They also need energy. They also do respiration and photosynthesis. So they also need to exchange gases with their environment for these two processes. But plants do not have any specialized respiratory system as animals do have. They do not have lungs. They do not have a respiratory system. So they do gaseous exchange with the help of cuticle, stomata, and lenticels. Cuticle is actually a waxy layer. Actually, it is to prevent the loss of water from the plant. It is a waxy layer which is present above the epidermis, but it also allows the gases to be exchanged. It also allows the exchange of gases through it. So some of the gases get exchanged with the help of cuticle. Now the most important, you can say, the part or the organ in the plant for the gaseous exchange, the pore-like structure which is present in the plant for gaseous exchange, is actually stomata. Leaves and young stems have small pores in epidermis called stomata. With the help of stomata, air moves in and out of the plant body. With the help of stomata, the air get into the plant body in the air chambers, and then there the gaseous exchange takes place between the air chamber, the air, and the cells. Then there is another part, as I have said earlier, that stomata is present in leaves and young stem, not on woody stem, right? So in the woody stem, in the bark of woody stem, as bark do not allow any exchange of gases, so in the bark of woody stem, special pores are present which are called lenticels. As you can see here, the white scars-like structure, these are lenticels present on this bark. Lenticels are actually pores in the epidermal or in the bark region of the woody stem, and these lenticels allow the exchange of gases with the environment. With the help of the lenticels, oxygen and carbon dioxide can move in and out of the plant body. So these are the three parts with the help of which exchange of gases takes place in plant. Now why do plant need to exchange these gases? Actually plant exchange gases for two processes, that is respiration and that is photosynthesis. For photosynthesis, plants require carbon dioxide, and for respiration, plants require oxygen. But in plants, the photosynthesis takes place only during daytime, while respiration takes place during day and night, all the time. Now the gaseous exchange during daytime is different as compared to nighttime. The reason is, in plants during daytime, both respiration and photosynthesis takes place. For photosynthesis, as I have told you earlier, plants use carbon dioxide. Plants use carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, and which is produced during respiration. The carbon dioxide, which is a byproduct of respiration, is used in the process of photosynthesis. But the rate of photosynthesis is much more as compared to the rate of respiration. That's why plant needs some extra carbon dioxide, which they take from the environment. So in the process of photosynthesis, the carbon dioxide produced as a result of respiration is also used, and also they take carbon dioxide from their environment. Then for the respiration, oxygen is required, and oxygen is produced as a byproduct in photosynthesis. So plant will simply use the oxygen which is produced in the photosynthesis for the process of respiration. They will not take any extra oxygen from their environment. They will just use the oxygen which is produced in the process of respiration, in the process of photosynthesis. Then during respiration, carbon dioxide is produced, which is used in photosynthesis. It means the requirement of the respiration, which is actually oxygen, is obtained as a byproduct of photosynthesis. And the product of the respiration, that is carbon dioxide, is used in the process of photosynthesis. So for respiration during daytime, plants do not need to exchange any gases with their environment. For respiration, they do not need exchange of gases with their environment, right? But for the photosynthesis, they need to exchange the gases with their environment. So during daytime, keep in mind this is during daytime. During daytime, plants are taking carbon dioxide from the environment and releasing oxygen in it. Like they are taking carbon dioxide, which is required for photosynthesis. They are not taking oxygen, which is required for the respiration, because the requirement of the respiration is fulfilled by the byproduct of the photosynthesis. So during daytime, plants are taking carbon dioxide from the environment and releasing oxygen in it. Now during night time, gaseous exchange during night time. During night time, only respiration takes place in the plants. So plants get oxygen from the environment and release carbon dioxide, because oxygen, which is required for the respiration, will be obtained from the plant from environment, and as a result of this process, plant will produce carbon dioxide, which is released to the environment. And there is no photosynthesis during the night time. That's why only the gaseous exchange, which is required for the respiration, will take place during night time. Okay, now coming toward the gaseous exchange in humans. Now you know that humans do not do any type of photosynthesis. We just respire. So for respiration, we need oxygen. And as a result of respiration in our body, carbon dioxide is produced. So we need to get rid of that carbon dioxide. In human, the gaseous exchange takes place for the respiration process, in which we take oxygen from the environment and we give carbon dioxide to the environment. But humans are more complex as plants. Animals are more complex as compared to plants. Humans are more complex as compared to plants. So we have a special respiratory system. We have a special respiratory system, a well-developed respiratory system for this process. This respiratory system can be divided into two components, into two parts. One is called air passageway, and the other one is lungs. Lungs, which is the major organ for the respiratory system. An air passageway, a way through which the air will move from the environment to the lung. Coming toward the air passageway. Air passageway is actually the connected tubes through which air moves from outside, from the environment to the lungs. The connected tubes through which air moves from the outside, from the environment to the lungs, it's simply called air passageway. This passageway consists of nostrils, nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, bronchi, bronchioles. Now coming toward nostrils and nasal cavity. Two openings or external nostril lie on the ventral side of the head region. The opening of the nose, the two opening of the nose are basically termed as nostril, external nostril or simply nostril. And with the help of the nostril, the air moves from outside environment into the nasal cavity. The cavity which is present inside the nose is called nasal cavity, and it is divided into two parts, into two chambers with the help of a bone partition. That's why we say two nasal cavities, because the single nasal cavity is divided into two with the help of a bone partition. Okay, nasal cavity is divided into two chambers by a bone partition, and in the nose, in the nasal cavity, some changes occur in the air, the incoming air. The air is warm, the air is moistened, and the air is dust-freed by the hairs and mucous membrane of the nasal cavity. When the air passes through the nasal cavity or through the nose, with the help of the blood vessels which are present here, the air gets warm. It gets moist with the help of mucus. And with the help of hairs, the cilia-like structure, the dust is removed, or the dust is trapped in the nasal cavity. The air is filtered out here actually. Now from the nasal cavity, the air will move toward the next part of the air passageway, that is called pharynx, which is a combined passage for the digestive system as well as for the respiratory system. So nasal cavity lead into the pharynx. Nasal cavities lead into the pharynx, or we can say the air from the nasal cavity will move toward the pharynx. Pharynx is almost about 4.5 inches long, a muscular passage, and it is lined with mucous membrane. And it also contains tonsils and adenoids, which are the organs of lymphatic system, which have lymph. These are the organs of lymphatic system, so their function is to trap and to filter the microorganism. So here the air will become again moist, and the germ will be trapped from the incoming air here. Now from the pharynx, there are two passages. One passage is toward the digestive system, as I have told you earlier that it is a combined passage for the digestive system and the respiratory system. So one passage is toward the larynx, which is a part of respiratory system, and the other passage is toward the esophagus, which is a part of digestive system. So for the respiration, from the pharynx, the air will moves into the larynx, and this larynx is also called voice box because our voice is also produced here with the help of vocal cords. So the cavity of the larynx is called glottis, and there's a lid-like structure which is present above the glottis, or you can say which guard the glottis. It is a cartilaginous flap or a lid-like structure which is called epiglottis. Epi means above the glottis. It actually prevents the entry of food into the glottis because pharynx is a combined passage for the food and for the air. So to prevent the entry of food into the larynx, into the glottis, there is a lid-like structure which close the glottis during swallowing of food, and this lid-like structure is called epiglottis. Okay, then look at the diagram. This is the nasal cavity. From the nasal cavity, the air will move into the pharynx, and after the pharynx, this is the larynx, right? Then the larynx leads to another tube-like, a pipe-like structure which is called trachea, which is also called windpipe, and which extend toward the thorax region, toward the chest cavity. Larynx open into the trachea or windpipe, or the air moves from larynx into the trachea or windpipe. Trachea lies ventral to the esophagus. Its inner surface is ciliated and secrete mucus. It has ciliated inner surface. It means the germs and the dust particle will be trapped here again, and the air will get moist. Okay, then the trachea have 16 to 20 C-shaped cartilaginous rings-like structure which prevent the trachea from collapsing, and trachea filter moist and warm the incoming air. Then the trachea divides and it forms two branches, and these branches are termed as bronchi. As you can see in the diagram over here, this is the larynx, and this tube-like structure which have a white cartilaginous rings-like structure, this is called trachea. Then the trachea divide and it form two branches, and these two branches are called bronchi, and these bronchus enter each bronchus enter to the lungs. Okay, each bronchus enter the lungs of its own side. It also have cartilaginous rings but smaller than those of trachea, and in the lungs the bronchi divides and subdivides to form smaller bronchi. As you can see in the diagram over here, this trachea divided from two bronchi, and bronchi enter the lungs. Then in the lungs these bronchi again divide and redivide, and they form smaller bronchi. Then when the smaller bronchi attain the diameter of 1 millimeter or less than this, then they are termed as bronchioles. The smallest branches, they are termed as bronchioles. Bronchioles have no cartilage, and these are made up of smooth muscles. Okay, then at the end of the bronchioles, a sac-like structure which resemble the bunch of grapes, this is called alveoli. Each bronchioles open into a sac-like structure called alveolus. Alveoli are thin-walled and covered with blood capillaries. Here the gaseous exchange takes place. These are the sac-like structure in which the air will enter, and here the gaseous exchange will take place. The oxygen from the alveoli, from the air sac, will become the part of the blood vessels which are present here around the alveoli, and the carbon dioxide which is present in the blood vessel will become the part of the air present in the alveoli. Okay, now coming toward the major respiratory organ, that is lungs. Lungs are the respiratory organ. They are present in pair form. We have two lungs, and these are present in the chest cavity, in the chest region. They are enclosed by a membrane that is called pleura. Okay, lungs are protected by this rib cage, the ribs. These provide protection to the chest cavity, to the lung. So they are protected by the rib cage. And below the lungs, a muscular sheet is present which is called diaphragm. Below the lungs, diaphragm is present which also helps in breathing, and which also separates the chest cavity from the abdominal cavity. So here the diaphragm is present, and the lungs is covered with the help or protected with the help of bones which is called rib cage. The structure made up of bones, made up of ribs which provide protection to the lungs is termed as rib cage. And there is also a membrane which covered the lungs which is called pleura. It is a double membrane, and in between the layers of the pleura there is a fluid which is called pleural fluid. It makes the expansion and contraction of the lungs easy. Okay, so this was all about today's topic. And now for your homework, you have to learn question number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of chapter 10, which are related to these topics. Thank you so much for listening. Have a nice day.